So Bleacher Report put out some news on Jalen Hurts. Obviously, we heard the news the last couple weeks on the Jalen Hurts Nick Sirianni relationship and all of that, which we'll go into. But new news regarding Bleacher Report on Jalen Hurts and how much control he has and how close he is working with Kellen Moore, especially this whole entire offseason. Are they working towards Jalen Hurts' strengths? How much involvement does Nick Sirianni actually have in this offense? A lot to talk about here, so this might be a rant, this might be a little bit more. We're definitely going to read some reports here, but other than that, that's pretty much it. Let's get into it.
We better turn. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what's going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a fantastic day. I hope everyone's enjoying their work week as of right now. So the last couple weeks have been kind of crazy because, obviously when things slow down, when it comes to football news, these reporters will come out with anything. But Bleacher Report came out some really interesting things, okay? Now talking about, obviously, how much control Jalen Hurts has in this offense. The relationship between him, Nick, Kellen Moore is the new offensive coordinator now. And I thought this was really interesting. So this is what was said on Bleacher Report. It says, I'm told the Eagles have spent a lot of time this offseason taking the old offense, Nick Sirianni's system last year that Jalen Hurts is used to, mixing it with Kellen Moore's principles. But put it all in a pot with some gumbo and seeing what works is what Jalen Hurts is comfortable with. Fowler said on Sunday's episode of SportsCenter, I'm told Hurts has done a good job this offseason of being vocal and taking ownership of the plays he likes and the plays he doesn't. Quote unquote, Nick Sirianni has really trusted the process, trusted his new veteran play caller to handle a lot of things. Even though he's an offensive minded head coach, he's not micromanaging everything, Fowler said. So they're getting to work on it. So I don't get what this whole thing was with Nick talking about their two principles of their offense coming together. It's Nick's offense, but Kellen Moore is adding stuff. No. That is not happening here. Okay, what's happening here is if 95% of this playbook is actually brand new, there's no way that if Nick only has 5% of this playbook infused, then it makes sense. But this isn't Nick's game plan. Nick is not an offensive-minded coach. Sorry, we all know what Nick does. Okay, Nick in 2021 as the head coach took over play calling or was the play caller for the Eagles, did not run the ball enough, just didn't do well, gave it to Shane Steichen, and we went in a really good direction. And then going into 22, on top of getting more weapons for the offense like A.J. Brown, Shane Steichen took off with this offense. And obviously last year, Steichen's gone. Brian Johnson's the offensive coordinator and the scapegoat at the end of the season of last year. Nick secretly, through news, was the game planner for this offense. And the coordinators were kind of piggybacking off of him. Nick Sirianni had more control last year than anything. Obviously, going into this year with the ultimatum of Nick Sirianni from Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, like, you fire two coordinators and Sean Desai and Brian Johnson, otherwise we're going to fire you. And that's what he did. Okay, the same ultimatum that pretty much got Doug out of Philadelphia, because Doug wanted to hire from within, and Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman always really wanted to start changing the hiring process of getting these coaches. Because really, Nick Sirianni came to the Eagles on a silver platter, from Frank Reich. And to find out Nick wasn't the actual play caller in Indianapolis at all. He wasn't he wasn't. And that, Frank Reich was. So Nick is running his own dog and pony show right now. That's all he's here. He's here for appearances. He's here to make himself look like he's doing things when he's really not doing anything. Nick in 2024, this offseason, this season, is on a short leash. They took all the control away from Nick. Look at the draft. Nick wasn't even in the picture sitting next to Howie or Nick in the draft war room. He was sitting all the way out of picture to the left side. Didn't even see him. Nick has no control over what they're doing. If Nick is putting in something from his offense from last year, and let me tell you something, Jalen Hurts did not like a lot of things with this offense last year. Yeah, maybe there were some things he did like about certain plays or whatever, but if it's only 5% from Nick Sirianni, then it's really just maybe a screen pass or maybe it is the brotherly shove. That's all that Nick is putting into this offense with Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore has never really had control taken away from him at helming, offensive play calling. And we're about to see it. We're about to see it when we head to Brazil on Friday night. What happens. Okay? But I think this is really interesting because we know that Jalen Hurts is going to have a lot of control at the line of scrimmage this year, that he can audible out of things, that, Kellen Moore will give him that, and that him and Kellen Moore have been really working on the plays that he does not like, but there is a close relationship there with Kellen Moore, which is great. It seems like the wide receivers are really excited about the freedom that they're going to have on some of the route combinations, which is fantastic. Obviously, getting the running backs into the passing game, which we desperately need, and obviously signing Saquon Barkley now changes everything. Actually paying a running back, actually having a 3-down back. But I say this with a grain of salt because we need to see what this whole thing is going to look like. Yes, when preseason comes, we can't flip out because the Eagles are not going to show all their cards in preseason games. They're going to run some standard plays that are just going to give players looks to make the team. Obviously, guys trying out for the team or trying to get a roster spot, whatever. Don't think you're going to see everything during the preseason game process of, if Kellen Moore's offense looks horrible, they're not going to give away everything that Kellen Moore is going to do. Obviously, on pre-snap motion and all, they'll do little things here and there, but nothing crazy. Okay, because really all the rumors that came out at the end of last season, which I thought was really interesting, okay, which somebody close to Jalen Hurts has said that when the Eagles were on the downfall at the end of last year, okay, Jalen Hurts went to Nick and said, hey, we need some more intermediate passes. We need to work middle of the field more because obviously the cover zero blitz just killed us and Nick didn't even change anything. But he couldn't change anything. Nick couldn't change a damn thing because there was no coaches that could take over play calling last year because he hired all these young, non-veteran, there was nobody to take any spots to, take some pressure off Nick or take some pressure off Sean Desai or anything. I mean, Sean Desai obviously was better than Matt Patricia. We all know that by a lot, only giving up 22 points a game to Patricia's 28 plus, and obviously changing things mid-season, especially your whole entire scheme of your defense is not the way you go there. Nick Sirianni meets with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts says, I want to work middle of the field. I want to get some intermediate passes. I need to change this passing game. And Nick swept it under the rug. I mean, that was the rumor that came out at the end of last year. And I kind of believe it, to be honest with you, because what really did change? Did the Eagles really play that well all good last year? They didn't play well the whole year last year. 10-1, sure. Eagles got lucky in a lot of games last year, but they played too many. They had too many ugly wins. You can't have that many ugly wins in one season. Okay, teams started to catch on to it. The Eagles, defenses are going to scheme against what you're giving to them offensively. And if you're not going to scheme back, if you're not going to make any changes to your offense, I mean, we didn't have one dominating game last season. So it's really nice to hear that Kellen Moore is working to Jalen Hurts' strengths. You're not going to put Jalen Hurts in an uncomfortable environment where you're asking your QB to do things, which, I'm sorry, guys, but, Jalen Hurts, what did we lose from Jalen Hurts last year? If we were not 10-1 without Jalen Hurts, let's get that straight. Number two, Jalen Hurts, we lost his run ability on top of everything. because how many QB draws the Eagles did early last season got hit so many times and using Jalen Hurts way too much, and you lost that third dynamic to your offense, which is Jalen Hurts' speed. Now with Saquon Barkley coming in, now obviously still having a great offensive line and having top-notch receivers and having some guys long-term now, I mean, the chemistry is off the wall, off the charts, and should be a lot better. Okay, but regarding the relationship between Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, to be honest, guys, I don't think there is a bad relationship going forward. I just think when Jalen Hurts was asked the question about Nick Sirianni and how much, I forgot, it was probably minicamp. I forgot which day of minicamp it was. It was probably the second or third day when Hurts was asked about Nick Sirianni's involvement and how much he's put into the offense this year. And Jalen Hurts says he has no idea. I can't really answer that question. I have no idea, which means, and it's okay to say this, but Hurts might like Nick, Hurts might love, Nick Sirianni, but the problem is he knows that he can't do the job. He can't get the job done. Nick is not an offensive-minded, big play caller. That's just not in his DNA. Nick is, and it's okay to be a hands-off coach. There's a lot of hands-off coaches in the league. There's guys that are very hands-on, guys that are hands-off, and Nick should stay away from the playbook. I don't think he might think he's an offensive-minded guy, but when it comes to being a coordinator or game planning for an offense, stay the fuck away from all of it. Seriously, because it's just hurting us in the end. And Jalen Hurts had nothing to say for that question. It was a messed up question because he's going to get shit for it regardless if he tells the truth or if he lies about it. So I think he was obviously telling the truth because Nick has no involvement in what we're doing offensively. There's no involvement whatsoever, and Nick has to live with it. Jalen Hurts is saying, I love Nick to death as a coach, but man, as a play caller, Nick needs to realize within himself and his ego that he's just not good at it. And he needs to stay away from it. Okay. So if the Eagles do really well this season and Kellen Moore is still here and the Eagles doing well offensively because of Nick? No, they're doing really, really well because of Kellen Moore. And obviously Doug, the new quarterback coach, he's a big vital piece for this offense when it comes to the passing game and really pushing his quarterbacks. Kellen Moore and Doug have been together, since Dallas, going to LA with the Chargers. So I think the coaching staff is perfect behind Jalen Hurts. And we know what Jalen Hurts can give us every single game, but man, last year was last year, and we keep talking about it, but we have to talk about it because we need to know what changes are being made. And if there's a really good collaborative effort between Jalen Hurts and Kellen Moore going into this season, and they're on the same page, and there is a dialogue going back and forth every single week that what Jalen Hurts and Kellen Moore know what's going to work for this offense is going to help his receivers, help every player. No strand of talent is going to be wasted in a Kellen Moore offense. Kellen Moore doesn't favor one guy over another. He doesn't favor one position over another. He doesn't waste anything. He leaves nothing on the field. Okay, everything. Everything is not going to be wasted here, and I think that's what I'm really trying to get at. Kellen Moore is not going to. So if Dallas Goedert gets hurt, they're not just going to ignore the tight end position. They're not going to treat the wide receiver threes like they're the redheaded stepchild because it just seems like that's been a downgraded position for so long, and hopefully now we will have that position ready to go. Okay, the running backs, we need to literally expand the roles of these running backs because I'm sorry, but, you're on a second, third, and short, and you want to sub a guy out and put Gainwell in, take DeAndre Swift out, put Gainwell in, you're making defenses realize, what the Eagles are doing on specific plays on your substitutions. When Gainwell comes in, it's not going to be a run, it's going to be a pass. They're making things way too obvious. So getting the running backs in the passing game to help let the offense work for Jalen Hurts. Take as much pressure off Jalen Hurts as possible. You got Saquon Barkley now. A.J. Brown is here long term. Devontae Smith this year, including this year for another 5 years. You know, you have a good tight end, Dallas Goedert, that needs to stay healthy, and we need to find out what our tight end 2 is, which I think is one of the biggest weaknesses to our offense right now. And you have an offensive line I think has some really good vital pieces that it will still be a great offensive line even without Jason Kelce here. So I think a lot is riding on Kellen Moore and the success that he's going to have here, because if he does well, I don't know if they're just going to demote Nick to like an assistant head coach job and make Kellen Moore the head coach, because realistically, if the Eagles do well, you can't fire Nick. It's just that would make you look really stupid. If the Eagles are very successful and this offense is flying and the Eagles win a championship or something like that, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx us just by saying it, but which is a good thing, would be great. But you'd have to keep everything in-house. And if Nick is a great motivator type coach, keep him around, but don't make him the head coach. Make him the assistant head coach to Kellen Moore. Reverse the roles a little bit or something like that. Kellen Moore is not the rah-rah type coach with his mouth. I mean, he's just a pad to paper, X's and O's type guy, and that's what he is. So that was the news on Bleacher Report regarding Jalen Hurts, Kellen Moore, the relationship with Nick. I think we're going in a really good direction. We'll get through training camp, stay healthy, do our thing, and we'll see what comes of the regular season. But I think from what I'm hearing so far, Nick is staying away. Kellen Moore's more involved. Quarterback is going to be used to his strengths, and the rest of this offense, the players seem excited on both sides, not just the offense, but the defense as well with Vic Fangio. So I'm definitely seeing more positivity going through this process, and obviously having an actual play caller offensively that has been a play caller for a lot of years, in Kellen Moore. This offense is going to take off. The one word I said, what did the Eagles hire this year that has been different from other years? Experience. Not just the coordinators, but the assistant coaches as well. Okay? And that's where we're kind of at right now. And I feel like we're going down a really good road, and we'll see what happens in the near future of everything moving forward, which I think is great. So other than that, guys, that's pretty much it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more Eagles news every single day. Like the video. This helps the channel out tremendously. And if you guys haven't checked out the Philly Shakedown podcast merch, definitely check it out. Link in the description for all of the merch that is out. We're gonna have some big surprises for you guys really, really soon, and very excited to release some other stuff for you. So hope you guys enjoy. But other than that, guys, I'll see you guys on the next one. Shakes, what up, follow side. Peace out, guys. Peace.